Did you know that Stephen Hawking, one of the greatest scientific minds of modern history, was once told he had only 2 years to live and that his dream of becoming a scientist was over before it even began? This is the untold motivational story of Stephen Hawking, a man who turned overwhelming struggles into groundbreaking success and showed the world that even the most crushing setbacks can be the very foundation of greatness. Born in 1942 in Oxford, England, Stephen William Hawking came into the world during a time of war, in a country still reeling from the bombings of World War II. His family was not wealthy, but they valued education and instilled in him a love of learning. Even so, Stephen was not seen as a prodigy or a genius in his childhood. His teachers thought he was slow, clumsy, and unfocused, and his early school years were filled with average grades and constant doubt from others. Friends nicknamed him Einstein half-jokingly, not because he excelled in everything, but because of his quirky curiosity about how things worked. He would take apart clocks, radios, and toys just to see their inner mechanics, sometimes unable to put them back together again, but always hungry for knowledge. This curiosity, while overlooked by many, became the fire that pushed him forward, even when the world underestimated him. As a teenager, Stephen's love for science deepened, though he was often more interested in games, banter, and rowing than in rigorous study. Yet underneath his easygoing personality, he carried a burning fascination with the universe, time, and the mysteries of space. He wanted to understand the deepest laws of nature, the unseen forces that governed everything. His family encouraged him, and soon Stephen won a place at Oxford University to study physics. At Oxford, he found himself surrounded by brilliant minds, and at first he felt out of place. His grades were still not extraordinary, but his sharpness in problem-solving quickly set him apart. He became known for doing complex mathematics in his head and finding shortcuts that amazed his peers. His professors began to see that behind his playful demeanor was a mind capable of grasping concepts that left others in awe. After completing his undergraduate degree, Stephen went on to Cambridge to pursue a PhD in cosmology, and that was when life struck him with one of its cruelest blows. At the age of 21, Stephen began to notice that his body was betraying him. He stumbled awkwardly while walking, slurred his speech, and struggled with coordination. After a series of tests, doctors delivered the devastating news. He had ALS, a degenerative motor neuron disease that gradually destroys the brain's ability to control muscles. The prognosis was brutal. Most patients lived only 2 to 5 years after diagnosis. At that moment, the future he had imagined seemed to collapse around him. He fell into despair, shutting himself away from friends, drowning in depression, convinced that his life was over before it had even begun. Imagine being told at 21 years old that not only would you lose your physical strength, but that your very life would soon end. That was Stephen's breaking point, the moment where most would have surrendered to hopelessness. He considered abandoning his studies, questioning what the point was if his body would soon fail completely. But something happened that changed the trajectory of his mindset. At first, it was his father's encouragement, urging him not to waste whatever time he had left. Then it was the love of Jane Wilde, the young woman who later became his wife, who saw not his disease, but his brilliance, his wit, and his heart. Their relationship gave him a renewed sense of purpose. Slowly, Stephen realized that while his body weakened, his mind was sharper than ever, and if he could no longer run, climb, or walk, he would fly with the wings of thought. He returned to his research with newfound intensity, focusing on cosmology, the study of the universe itself. He knew his time might be short, so he chose to dedicate every ounce of strength to unraveling the mysteries of time, black holes, and existence itself. At first, progress was painfully slow. His disease made writing and calculations exhausting, and he often had to type equations with just one finger or scribble painfully slowly with shaky hands. His speech slurred, making communication frustrating, but he refused to stop. Every setback became a stepping stone, every limitation a challenge to overcome. His turning point came when he immersed himself in the study of black holes and singularity. At the time, black holes were mysterious, misunderstood, and feared, often seen as cosmic monsters. But Stephen dared to question the very fabric of the universe, proposing radical ideas that stunned the scientific world. He demonstrated mathematically that black holes were not completely black, that they could emit radiation, now famously known as Hawking radiation. This discovery revolutionized theoretical physics and placed Stephen Hawking among the greatest scientific thinkers of all time. But science alone was not what made him a global icon. It was his resilience, his refusal to be defined by his disease, that captured the imagination of millions. Confined to a wheelchair and increasingly unable to move, Stephen relied on technology to continue his work. When he lost his voice after a tracheotomy, he used a speech-generating device that allowed him to communicate through a computer. The voice became iconic, robotic, yet filled with wit, humor, and intelligence. Despite physical paralysis, his mind roamed freely across galaxies, and his voice, though artificial, became louder than millions. His groundbreaking book, A Brief History of Time, was a sensation, selling millions of copies worldwide. It brought the wonders of the cosmos into living rooms and inspired ordinary people to think bigger, to dream of stars, black holes, and the origins of the universe. Hawking's persistence in the face of unimaginable adversity made him a symbol of hope. He gave lectures, wrote books, and traveled the world, often at great personal cost, but always with determination. He joked about his condition, used humor to break barriers, and showed that disability did not mean inability. His achievements proved that the mind is limitless, even when the body is confined. Though ALS ravaged his body, Stephen lived not just 2 years, but more than 5 decades after his diagnosis. Every year he survived, he defied medical expectations, and every decade he lived, he reshaped science and inspired humanity. Stephen Hawking's story is not just about black holes and physics. It is about resilience, courage, and the refusal to give up. He once said, "However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at." That belief carried him through his darkest moments. He taught us that your circumstances do not define your destiny, your persistence does. Even when the world doubts you, even when your body betrays you, even when every door seems closed, persistence can open a window to greatness. His journey is a shining reminder that the greatest discoveries are not just in science, but in the strength of the human will. So whenever you feel like giving up, remember Stephen Hawking, the man who could not walk but taught the world to run toward the stars, the man who could not speak but gave the universe a voice, and the man who proved that the human spirit, when fueled by persistence, can overcome anything. His life is proof that failure is not the opposite of success, but its foundation. And his story reminds us that even in the darkest black holes of despair, there is always a spark of light, a radiation of hope, and a chance to rise, shine, and inspire the world.